a lot of people watch BBC Two, Big Cats About the House. And it's all about an animal sanctuary, the Big Cat Sanctuary. And one of the people who works there is Briony Smith. And I've got her on the phone. Hello, Briony. How are you?
Hi, Lee. I'm good. How are you doing?
Very well, thank you. Now, Briony, what do you actually do at the Big Cat Sanctuary?
Well, my individual role is head keeper here, so I oversee all of the keepers and all of the great care that they take over our cats.
Now, how did you get involved in working with big cats?
It wasn't a conventional way. I actually I found this place by, I was in college learning how to work in television, and we started to put together an idea. We found these guys in the paper and started to put together an idea of a story we'd like to do. So I drove up here and said to the guy who was running it at the time, we'd like to do some filming, and I just never wanted to leave. So from that day on, I became a volunteer, and I just wouldn't go away, basically. So I learned as much as I could, and got brought on as a keeper, and gradually worked my way up from there.
Wow, what an incredible story. The sanctuary was founded in about 2000, is that right?
Yeah, so the site was bought by the owner of Paradise Wildlife Park in 2000 from a local farmer who'd been rescuing cats, mm-hmm. and the charity was set up in 2002. So it's sort of 19 years old now. The site kind of as we know it, but it's really only in the last sort of 5 years or so it's really gone to strength. It was kind of in the background, just ticking away and doing the best it could for its animals, and more recently with more visitors we've really been able to grow and give some of that back.
Now you've got something like 50 wild cats there at the moment.
Yeah, it's
wow.
Nearly 50. We've got 45 at the moment, over 14 different species. So not all big cats, we've got a real range.
The cats you have there, they're sort of rescued, they're breeding programs. They're all, some of them are even old age pensioners like me. I
couldn't possibly comment on that. but we've got cats here for a real variety of different reasons. We do have breeding program cats, and those are conservation-based breeding programs with a view to safeguard the population of their species against extinction in the wild. Mm-hmm. We also have had lots of rescued cats in the past. Luckily, circuses certainly in this country are becoming less and less regular. You really only find them on the continent now. So, rescued animals is something we see less of, but we have given homes to rescued animals before. And we also have some that were born in other collections that just needed a home. And they're here to help us educate our guests about, their species and the threats that they may face or the troubles that they face in the wild. So a few different reasons that we've got guys here. We're really, really focusing on the breeding programs, and those are, really important for the conservation of their species. So that's a really important part of what we'd like to be involved in.
And just before we get too far, I just think we ought to stress this isn't in some fantastic exotic location in Africa. You're actually in Ashford in Kent.
We are. Yeah, we are. We're hidden down the back in the middle of lots of fields down in Kent, yeah.
Now, the centre itself has now been recognised as a centre of excellence. Is that right?
Yeah, well, we're very lucky. We're members of a couple of governing bodies for zoos throughout Europe and Britain as well. And we have been called a centre of excellence. Yeah, and we'll strive to always keep that up and keep improving as much as we can.
That's fantastic, isn't it? I love it because the days of the zoo are slowly but surely disappearing. But still, the job that they do, which is looking after and caring and hopefully starting to breed animals, all different types of animals, is now continuing with centres like yourselves. I mean, is that something which you're aware of?
Well, we are a zoo. We have a zoo licence. We work very closely with other zoos. I think it's really important, actually, that people realise how important the role to conservation that zoos play. Obviously, we are focusing on cats here, but throughout the collections throughout the world, obviously it's lots of species that are dependent on these captive breeding programs, and the work that we do. We just do it in a slightly different way. We have a real sanctuary feel. We have a very quiet, calm feel here because we're closed to the public. We're not open. The same thing. It's all really important work. So yeah, we're really, really proud to be a part of it.
Now, the two animals, or the two cats that have really been featured on TV, Maya and Willow, I can't help laughing because, they start out as these tiny little bundles of fur and they just get bigger and bigger.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they definitely do. They're just over 18 months old now. Each of them. They're very close in age. They're only 10 days apart from each other. Very different backgrounds. But yeah, just over 18 months old now, so they're big girls.
I mean, having something like that around your house, okay, you've got the obvious thing that the furniture's going and, anything on the floor is going to get ripped. But it must be a tremendous responsibility having an animal like that roaming around your house. Absolutely.
It just, the rules go out the window, everything like that. You've got to absolutely base your life around taking the best possible care you can of these animals. And I think it's really important as well to realise, if it was a puppy or a domestic kitten or anything, it would be enough work, and that's sort of a conversation in itself. But what has to be remembered about these guys as well, Maya and Willow as well, they're not pets. So being wild animals, you're also having to manage certain behaviours that are closer to the surface than they would be in a domestic cat or dog. So you do suddenly have wild behavioural traits coming through that you have to manage, and it's very interesting. So they didn't stay in the house for very long. Maya was what was she? She must have been about 3 months old when she moved onto site full time, and she went into her enclosure from then. And she's an absolute sweetheart, don't get me wrong, but yeah, she is a Jaguar, and that's something that needs to be remembered, and she needs to be treated appropriately. So she had her own enclosure that she could do what she liked in. There was no furniture in there for her to tear up, and the same with Willow as well.
Now, Jaguars are beautiful animals. They're something which I find just so exotic and so fantastic, but people must realise they're not pets, are they? There are people who try and keep things like that as a pet, and it is wrong, isn't it? Well,
having taken care of Maya I had her from I think about 10 or 11 weeks old. No, it's an absolute, it's an absolutely huge responsibility. Their needs are so much different from a domestic animal. They shouldn't be taken on as pets, or people that take wild animals on need to be prepared that they are going to behave like wild animals. They don't have, thousands and thousands of generations of domestication behind them. So you do get some antisocial behaviours. We obviously were very prepared for the way that Maya was going to be. Giles, my boss, is very experienced in hand-rearing wild cat species. And we had to make all of her care appropriate to her as an individual, but also as a Jaguar. So it was really important that we fed her in a particular way, so that, if she became defensive over her food. Jaguars can be very, very food aggressive. I somehow was always lucky, and she wasn't really like it with me. But, with some of the others, she would be very food aggressive. And because we knew we weren't going to be going in with her forever, we could accommodate for that, and that's fine. But we did have to pull away from going in the enclosure with her a year old, not because anything happened, but because she was really getting to the point where she was big enough that, for our safety, we had to pull away. So what we did was gradually reduce down the amount of time that we were spending in the enclosure with her, so that psychologically for her, it wasn't a very sudden break. And we still go and visit her now. Every single day I'll go and see her. I just can't actually be in with her. So, yeah, it's harder for me, I think, than it is for her to be apart.
Each animal, each breed has its own enclosure. There's no way you could ever mix them, is there?
No, you can physically mix them. That's not really what we're interested in doing here. You know, lions and tigers that have grown up together can live together, often, you know, without necessarily any problems, but that's not really what we want to do here. That's not natural. You know, lions and tigers wouldn't encounter each other in the wild. So we keep them separate. Most of our cats live in an enclosure of their own, even if it neighbours another enclosure with somebody else in it. And that's just because they do, you know, tigers, for example, almost all wild cats are solitary to a fairly heavy degree, lions being the main exception. So we like to mimic that here, give them all their own space anyway.
Yeah. How many of the animals is it intended will go back into the wild? Or is it one of those things where, you know that there is very little chance of these animals going to the wild?
Well, we are a little earlier on in that kind of in that process anyway. So with the breeding programs, you can't go directly from a breeding program straight into releasing them back into the wild in the same generation. So what we do is help to encourage, as part of the breeding program, encourage diversity of genetics within the population. And then with predators in particular, you can't do what you call a hard release program where you just send individuals out and release them out into their natural habitat, because these guys have become so accustomed to humans in a captive environment. They aren't scared of people, so they would think nothing if we, you know, introduced them to the wild. They would think nothing of approaching, you know, human settlements or anything like that, and that's already a problem out in the wild. So we don't want cats that are going to show no fear of people and go wandering up and into villages and things like that. So it takes a few generations to then teach them actually what they should be eating, for example, and how to hunt it, and let them hone their hunting skills, even though a lot of them are very natural, and also to get that disassociation from people as well. So there's a few stages in between what we do and the actual release, but there is a reintroduction of Amur leopards, which is ongoing at the moment, and that's very exciting. So the Amur leopard is a critically endangered leopard that lives out in far eastern Russia, and there's thought to be around 100 of them in the wild now, although about 10 years ago it's about 25. So they desperately need some help from a reintroduction program, and that's going to take place over a few generations, starting now, where animals are starting to be held away from people so that they can, you know, lose that association with people. And then they will be fed live prey, they can learn how to hunt it, etc. Then they stand a much better chance of being successful in the wild.
Okay. Now, you say that it's a very tranquil place, it's a very relaxed place, although you do have visitors there, but it's quite heavily controlled, isn't it?
It is quite heavily controlled. We have to have people, or we invite people here on a kind of pre-book only basis. So we sell experiences. Ranger for a day, where you can come and help our keeping team, or even if it's just a guided tour and things like that. We have various experiences that people can buy and come and visit the place, and then they get their own tour guide, and we can take them around and tell them all about what it is that we do here. We've also got 5 open days every year where we do function a bit more like an open zoo, and people can come and listen to our animal talks and get some food or bring a picnic or whatever, and they're really, really good fun. And there's lots of other things that we do as well, so we'd be here all day. But yeah, we do limit the number of people that come in every day, and it just gives a much nicer, much quieter experience and home for the cats.
Oh, keeper for a day. Who wouldn't want to do that? Oh, wouldn't that be wonderful?
You have to be quite brave, I can tell you that, for the keeper for a day. It's mucky stuff, but it's a really good way of seeing what it is that we do to look after our cats, yeah.
I mean, it sounds fantastic. It sounds as though the work you are doing is really, really good. But how is it funded? I mean, is it funded by just sort of charity?
Well, we are a charity, yeah. So we do. Some people are kind enough, especially if they can't come and visit. They'll come and, you know, they'll sometimes send us just donations because they want to support what we're doing, which is absolutely fantastic. But also the experiences that we sell. You know, the show. Oh my goodness, the impact that the show has had is absolutely incredible. So we've had a huge amount of support from that. But yeah, it's mostly. We also do overnight lodge stays and things like that, so people can come and stay on site. So yeah, a lot of it is funded good body experiences that we do, along with a combination of donations that people will make.
Now, there is a website. I've had a little mooch around on it and found some fascinating things. What's the web address? I can't remember.
The web address is thebigcatsanctuary.org.
That's it, bigcatsanctuary.org. Now, you can also go on there and you can get involved in sending funding to the sanctuary as well. Yeah,
there's all sorts of ways that you can support us. I mean, we run memberships and all sorts of other things too. So there's absolutely tons that people can do to support us.
Brilliant. Well, I'm going to go back on there in a minute, actually, because I want to find out about these overnight stays. I didn't see that bit.
Oh, fantastic! Yeah, no, there are absolutely all singing, all dancing experience. You love those ones, so take a look. Yeah,
I'll bring my own gloves and wellies, and I'll be there.
Okay, brilliant.
Briony, thank you so much for your time. It's been absolutely fascinating chatting with you. I shall be glued to the TV again when the next programme comes on, because I know it's on soon.
Brilliant. And, excellent. Yeah, good to hear it.
I know Giles is away at the moment, but, thanks to you guys for what you're doing. It's an absolutely excellent thing, and I hope it just grows and grows and grows.
Thank you. I hope it will too, yeah. And it's great to be able to really be giving back substantially as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Take care. We'll speak to you soon, hopefully.
All right. Bye, Lee.
Bye-bye.